Today, by special request, we're going to have a lesson about the tarot keys and their relation to the Hebrew letters and the numbers associated to them. Now, this is like one of the most important keys if you really want to crack into magic and crack into the tarot and really unlock all of the hidden meanings and the keys that are within. And without knowing these Hebrew letters and taking the time to really do this, it's simply impossible. You'll just never be able to really get into the deeper regions of magic if you don't know this. So we're just going to start right from the beginning with the major arcana. As many of you know, each of the major arcana keys relates to one of the Hebrew letters and has an associated number with that. So the first one we have is the Fool. So this is the Aleister Crowley Thoth Tarot. And so these are my favorite cards as far as the symbolism, as far as the formulas of right now in the new Eon, moving towards the new Earth is concerned. These are the most accurate symbols, so I would highly recommend getting this deck above all others. As you can see right here, at the corner of every card, you have the Hebrew letter listed. So the letter associated with the Fool is Aleph. And Aleph means the ox. Now this is really important because of its association with the letter Lamed, which is the ox goat. And the combination of these two leads to the manifestation and the dissolution codes that exist within the life breath of the universe. The combination of the Fool with adjustment is probably the most important start-stop codon to your magical formulas that you'll come across. And so pay special attention to any time you see these two letters together. The letter Aleph is valued at 1, which, as you can see, the card is valued at 0. Now, the reason for this is that the Fool, being a pathway on the Tree of Life and not a Sephiroth in and of itself, is showing the transition from 0 to 1 via its all movement or manifestation movement. And it's also showing the pathway from 1 to 0, showing its law or its dissolution movement back into the infinite potential, and then at the beginning of the whirlings as it's expressed outward. So this shows right of itself why the Fool is such an important card and why it is essentially the alpha and omega of the tarot. It's the beginning and the end. The unborn Fool, the babe in the egg, eventually goes through the entire journey to the holy mountain to realize its union with the self, or the Hermit. This is the entire dissolution formula from manifestation all the way back into source, which then this Fool is reborn as the awakened Fool, which is the true master. So as you can see, it shows the entire cycle of the tarot within this card alone. The second card, the Magus, is associated to the Hebrew letter Beth, which means a house. And this has the number association as 2. So, going with the tarot key association as 1, you have the Magus as what it leads from 1, which is the extension from the infinite potential, into 2, its replication, its reflection. And this card is the very key of that. It's why this card is both related to the superconsciousness and also the self-conscious use of the logos. And so this specific card is about this entire process, both ways, 1 to 2 and 2 to 1. The next card we have is the High Priestess, which is associated in Hebrew to the letter Gimel. Gimel means the camel. As you can see, the camel is pictured right here on the card. It's the camel that is able to cross the desert, across the abyss, from one side to the other. And this is exactly the function of the High Priestess card in the tarot. This is the formula of how to cross abysses, how to go from the Ruach, or the mind, all the way back into source, and how to lead from source back into mind, and how to shape the inspiration and that intuitive wisdom that comes directly from Kether, from the One. Gimel is the number 3, and so as the other cards, you have the association of the energies that's moving from 2 to 3 and 3 to 2. And the High Priestess represents this entire process. The next card is the Empress, and the Empress is associated to the Hebrew letter Daleth, which Daleth means the door, and has the number association as of 4. And so the most important thing about the High Priestess is that the High Priestess shows the path to the secret door, which that secret door is concealed underneath her right there. And this is the most important symbol of this card. And so also Daleth, when spelled out in full, is equivalent to the number 434, which when added to the key 343 gives you 777, or cherubim's flaming sword. This is the sword that would guard those from entering Eden to partake of the tree of knowledge, or the tree of life. And so this key, or this card, is exactly showing the process and the formula in order to accomplish this. It's the 3 to 4 and the 4 to 3. 3 is also the number of multiplication, and 4, being form, shows that the way that the infinite energy is then multiplied outward and brought into form, and also released from its form back into the womb of the all. The next card in this is the star, because of its association to He. Now this is the association that got changed because of the Book of the Law. If you reference Excalibur about the Pisces pivot, I talk all about the reason for this. There's many, many reasons for this, that this has been changed in the new magical formula of the new Eon. But as you can see, the star is associated with 17, which he was originally associated with the Emperor at 4. So he is 5, and the association is 17. And so you can see that there's a completely different use of the numbers here, which going into the star shows the entire formula for that transition from 5 to 17. 5 being a microcosm, being a star intact, right? The star of the soul. And it's moving out into its full expression in the 17, which is in introduction 8, is also a number of magic because of its association with the chariot. See, these Hebrew numbers and letters open up all kinds of meanings that are previously hidden. And so to go into each of these is going to really, really help you in your understanding of magic and magical texts in specific. The next one, you have the Hebrew letter Vav. And Vav means the nail. So Vav is associated to 6. The Hierophant, which is numbered 5, is the process of 5 to 6 and 6 to 5, which is very important because 5 being the microcosm, or the pentagram, and 6 being the hexagram, or the macrocosm, shows the way in which the interaction of the microcosm or pentagram relates to the whole, and the way that the whole relates to the microcosm. As above, so below. And the Hierophant shows this interaction exactly because of this number relation. The next is the Zain with the lovers, so 7. And Zain means the sword, and this is the sword of disillusion, while the lovers is showing the process of union. And this is the secret key of this card, is that it shows both of these processes of disillusion and union as one and the same. And this process takes place between the 6 to the 7 and the 7 to the 6. Which is also a secret, also in cases, and reveals to us the secret of the elixir or the philosopher's stone when we're able to really decipher and go fully into the meanings of this card. Next we have the Chariot, and this is a very, very important card because of its association to the magic word of the Eon, abrahadabra, which value is 418. It's associated to the letter Cheth. Cheth is 8 in the Hebrew language, and it means a fence. Now, Cheth spelled in full equals 418, which is equal to abrahadabra, and is also equal to Rahor, or the first part of the name of the god of the Eon. Now, Cheth, being the fence, also represents essentially the word, and it represents the way in which we manifest our reality via the projection of our soul force into matter. And the entirety of the mystery of this formula is concealed within, and it's showing the process from the 7 to the 8 and the 8 to the 7. Which, as we know in the tarot, there's 78 cards. So that 78 shows the completion, and that completion also is one of these main keys to the Chariot. The next card in here is Teth, which is associated to 11, Lust, or currently known as Fortitude or Strength. And Teth means the serpent. So this is the serpent force that this is talking about. And extended out, the number is 419 if you were to spell Teth in full, which is also very important because it's a magician using his magic. And it shows that it's the serpent force exactly that allows that magic to be embodied and to be expressed out into the world. One of the secrets here is that its other number it's associated to is 11, which we know abracadabra is also equated with 11, with its 11 letters. You have 5 A's or 5 pentagrams associated to the 6 consonants, a microcosm and a macrocosm interrelating with each other through the 9 of the serpent. So this key and this card represents all the magical processes that talk about this specifically. Next we have the Hermit, which is related to the Yod, which is 9, or 10, 10. The number is numbered at 9. So this is the process from 9 to 10 and 10 back to 9. Now, the Hermit represents the full realization of the union with the self. That's why he's the Hermit, because he is alone. He's reached the highest peaks and realized that everything is an expression of this self, and then shines the lamp of his lantern, of his star, outward to the rest of the universe that they can be guided to the same realization. Now, the Yod is probably one of the most important letters in all of Hebrew because it's the first letter in the name of the Tetragrammaton, or Yahweh. And it's essentially the alpha of the language, the omega being Tau, which we'll get to in the Universe card. And so this card specifically is the process of the full union with the divine self. We're talking about the Atman, like the all, the pure awareness. And this card is the key to this formula specifically. Next card we have is the Wheel of Fortune, which is associated to the letter Kaf, which number is 20. So it's here that we see a change in the way that these cards are being associated. They're not just sequential numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At this point it goes from 10 to 20. And we see that this card is 10 and 20 at the same time, showing that expansion into the elaborations, into the various manifestations of the infinite potential in all of its possible ways. And so this card is showing the very process of that, in which those elaborations take place, in which the original 10 spheres of the Sephiroth are then multiplied out and become every other variety that exists, and also the way that they come all the way back. And this secret is held in the balance of the sulfur, the mercury, and the salt, represented by the Sphinx, Hermatibus, and Typhon here. That when those are balanced, the lightning of the self can proceed unimpeded. And so these are the important meanings to pay attention when using this card. Next, we have Lamed, which we talked about before, which means the ox goad. Now, this is important because the ox goad is that which guides the ox, or guides the infinite potential of the Fool. So when paired with the Fool, we have manifestation, and when released from the ox goad, the original whirlings, the infinite potential of the Fool, are then released to dissolve back into zero. And so this is one of the most important cards to realize in your manifestations. And its biggest key you can see in the feet, as she is balancing her bare feet on the edge of the magic sword, which shows the type of precision that's necessary to fully manifest and create what you want through magic. And as you can see, its number is 8, which relates this card back into the Lust card, which is 11, because this is another part of the Pisces pivot that I was talking about, which has enough information that we could do a video on that alone, and we probably will in the future just to go into it all the way. But this is the most important card for you when it comes to your manifestations, and also releasing things that are in matter and releasing those back to the potentiality. And everything that you need to know about that is contained within this specific key. Next is the Hanged Man, which is Mem, and associated with number 40. Now you can see that it's also 12, so you see that 40 and 12 are related to each other. Mem means the sea, so it's essentially the sea of consciousness in a certain way, and it regards to its association to time with the 12. And so we're seeing that the consciousness of the self is essentially suspended into the sea of consciousness, right, into time. And this is exactly the formula of the dying gods that has been used for the last eon, which in essence has obsolete in a sense, but has its specific use still. And so in order to understand this card all the way, we'll actually open the keys of what the new eon formulas are really about. All right, the death card is associated to the letter Nun, which is the fish, and it's equal to 50, associated with Atu 13, which in the original tarot decks was not named Death, it was just Atu 13, the nameless one. So it's the fish that can swim in the sea of the consciousness of the Hanged Man. And so we see that the interrelations between these last two cards is very important. So the interrelation between 50 and 40, right? Which gives us 90, equated to Zadi, or the Emperor, which we'll get to in a second. That is the combination of those two energies that form that Emperor. Here we have the art card, previously known as Temperance, which is equated to Samek, equal to 60, which means a tent peg. Now, this card is one of the most important cards because it gives half of the formula for the Philosopher's Stone, or the elixir, the other half being in the Lover's card. And you'll see this in the interrelation between the lions and the eagles, and the exchange in colors that take place with those. If you pay special attention to these and study the symbols in these very, very deeply, that's what unlocks the recipe to make the Philosopher's Stone and to create the elixir. All right, so here we have the devil, and it's associated to Ayin, which means the eye, and the number 70. Also associated to 15, which, you know, the devil I've talked about before, is essentially lux concealed. It's missing its L, or it's missing Lamed, the adjustment, the manifestation, and it's backwards. And this is showing exactly what the devil card is showing. That the special power, the light, is concealed within the illusion of what is conceived of as evil in the manifestation, or the reality. And so it's really important, especially with this card, to realize that whatever is considered evil is the part of reality that you feel repulsed by, or the part of reality that you're afraid of, and that there's a special power concealed beyond that that will free you completely from those illusions. Here we have Pei, which is 80, and this is the Tower card at 16. So this is that same lightning that was showcased in the Wheel of Fortune card, which the lightning destroys all the false structures. But there's more to it than that. There's a lot more concealed in the hidden symbolism with the dove and the lion serpent here. And I would highly recommend researching those symbols to begin to unlock what this card is really about. For although this card can be terrifying at first in Magic, this card is the key to the ultimate power that can be unlocked. Now we get to the Emperor, who is equated with Zadi, or 90, because of the Pisces pivot given to us in the Book of the Law. And so we can see that the rearrangement of the Emperor and the star, and comparing those in connection with where they now fall into the tarot, where they lie on the Tree of Life, is opening a lot of new avenues that weren't previously available in the older eons. All right, and here we have the moon, which is associated to Kaf, or 100. And in the moon card, we see the light of Kefra, or the midnight sun, right? The one that holds its own light within the darkness, leading it upon the middle path between the two towers towards the holy mountain of the Hermit, as represented in the 9 yods there as drops of blood. So this is essentially the representation of the entire spiritual journey within incarnation. And this is one of the most important keys to unlock the full embodiment of all of your magic power in this life. Here we get to the sun, or Resh, which is 200, and equated to 19. Now, this is one of the most important cards as well because of the solar aspects of Ra Horkuwit, with the sun being Ra, and the light of the sun being one of the main guiding influences in this new eon. Which brings us to the Eon card, or Shin, which is equated to 300. And here we can see that in the very letter of Shin are 3 yods that are combined as one, which form those fires of the eon. And finally, Tau, the universe, the mystery of the star and snake, which is equated to 400, and Saturn, the manifestation, what brings everything into matter and Malkuth. And if you look at its placement on the Tree of Life, you'll see how all of the energies combine to come to this point to lead to the manifestation of your current reality. Now that we have like all of the cards and the Hebrew letters and their numbers and their meanings, we can begin to unlock various codes that exist within the tarot by the words alone, which we can convert into numbers and back into words. And so this opens up entire avenues of Kabbalistic expansion and evaluation that were previously closed for us. For example, if we're talking about Kether, right? The number 1 Sephiroth on the tree. Kether, then, we know, is composed of Kaf, the wheel, Tau, the universe, and Resh, the sun. And so now, because we know the letters and we know their associations, we can now create the actual words and get a full tarot spread for every single word that exists. Therefore, if you want to see the formula of Kether, this is the formula of Kether. And if you combine the values, you have 20 for Kaf, you have 400 for the universe, and 200 for the sun. You see that 620 perfectly shows the formula of Kether. And researching into the number 620 will open up those keys as well, which we'll do another video about how to analyze numbers, especially complex numbers, because this is something that is not easily grasped and is skipped over a lot in Magick specifically. But we're going to get to these in the future. Anyway, that is a quick introduction into the Hebrew letters and why they're important. And so in order to practice, I would recommend just simply memorizing all of these letters, being able to recognize them, knowing the letters that are associated with them, and then starting to apply them to different magical words, or really any words at all. You can apply them to your name, you can apply them to anything, because you can now associate anything back into the tarot, which creates the entire world around you to be included in your magical universe. Now, as of right now, I am no longer teaching the introduction courses at the Academy of Magic Arts and Sciences. They are still being offered, but they're being taught by another student. I have 2 openings now in what I'm calling the master classes, which are $5,000 a month for 3 months of instruction. Now, these are specifically for individuals that are ready to go all the way, that are ready to cross the abyss or are on the other side, and I want to move into the high magic formulas and just push it as far and as fast as they can go. But either way, whether you're a beginner or whether you're advanced, there are options for you to learn now and to really bring these principles into your life and create some major changes. And so I recommend visiting greatwhitebrotherhood.org for more information about these and to subscribe to this YouTube channel. And there will be plenty of more material that is to come.